What's the most iconic BMX moment in cinema history? At this point, most people would say E.T. And they'd be wrong, because E.T. is a sci-fi film with a BMX scene. So, the two films we're looking at today, they are BMX to their core, and only one of them can be the greatest BMX movie ever made. Hi, I'm Matt, and I've worked in the movie and entertainment industry for over 35 years. I've seen the blockbusters, the flops, and plenty of hidden gems along the way. And here on Screen One, we're building a video store society where we look back at the films that built our love for cinema. And today, we're squaring off two films from the same era on the same subject and putting them head to head. So why don't you go ahead and subscribe and become part of our growing video store society? Now, before we break these two down, you need to understand something. The early 80s weren't just a BMX craze, it was full-blown cultural takeover. Every kid wanted a BMX, every studio wanted a BMX movie, and out of all of them, two rose to the top. Not because they were the biggest budget, not because they had the biggest stars, although one of them accidentally did, but because they captured something real about what it felt like to be a kid on two wheels in the 1980s. So let's start with the one that got there first. BMX Bandits 1983, directed by Brian Trenchard-Smith. And yes, that is a 15-year-old Nicole Kidman in her first major starring role. The plot? Three BMX obsessed teenagers stumble across a stash of walkie talkies stolen by a pair of bumbling criminals. And what follows is essentially a family adventure kids outsmarting adults, riding circles around the bad guys, and having the time of their lives doing it. It's light, it's fun, it's pure 80s escapism. If you've ever loved The Goonies or Stand By Me, the feeling of kids on an adventure, figuring it all out, no adults required, BMX Bandits lives in that same world. It's a gentler, a warmer film. The kind of film where you feel the stakes are just dangerous enough to be exciting, but never actually enough to worry you. But here's what everyone remembers: the water park scene. Kidman and the lads tearing through water parks on their BMXs down the slides, through the pools. Absolute chaos. It's a scene that makes the film. Take that out, and BMX Bandits is a decent Sunday afternoon watch. Leave it in, and it becomes iconic. And then there's Miss Kidman herself. Nobody watching this in 1983 could have predicted where she was heading. From BMX Bandits to Eyes Wide Shut and beyond. From riding a water slide to riding an Oscar campaign.
And the Oscar goes to, alrighty, by a nose, Nicole Kidman.
This film didn't make her career, but it's the first time you can see it. That presence, even at 15. So, BMX Bandits is a genuine classic, but is it enough? Is the water park scene and a young Nicole Kidman enough to take the crown? Now hold that thought, because now we need to talk about RAD. And trust me, by the time I'm done, you'll understand why this decision isn't as straightforward as you think. Or maybe it is. But you'll have to stick around to find out. RAD, 1986, directed by Hal Needham, the same stunt legend behind Smokey and the Bandit, and you can feel it. This is not a family adventure. This is an action film that happens to be about BMX, and it is absolutely gloriously bonkers. Crew Jones is a small town kid who's good on a bike, like really good, good enough to qualify for Helltrack, a made up, made for TV race that's basically the BMX equivalent of the Gladiator Arena.
Welcome to a brand new series of Gladiators!
The local promoter doesn't want him there. The corporate sponsored pros don't want him there. But Crew shows up anyway because that's what underdogs did in the 80s. And also, the soundtrack. If BMX Bandits feels like the Goonies, Rad feels like someone strapped a ghetto blaster to the handlebars and turned it up to 11. John Farnham, Real Life, Break the Ice, every single scene is drenched in synth pop and power rock. The kind of soundtrack that doesn't just accompany the action, it propels it forward. You can't watch Rad on mute, it just wouldn't make sense. The music is as much a character as Crew Jones.
Get ready to break the ice. Feels like time is standing still.
Now, the whole film builds to the race, the Helltrack, and when it arrives, it delivers. Massive jumps, brutal crashes, and a final stretch that feels like the entire movie has been holding its breath. If BMX Bandits waterpark scene is a moment everyone remembers, then Helltrack is the Karate Kid crane kick of BMX cinema, and it's the moment where the whole genre finds its peak. And then there's that dance scene. Crew and his girl performing a choreographed routine on BMX bikes at a school dance. Yes, I just said that. BMX bikes at a school dance and a choreographed routine.
Send me an angel. Send me an angel. Right now.
It shouldn't work, but it absolutely works. It's the perfect encapsulation of everything Rad is. It's completely bonkers. It shouldn't exist, and yet somehow one of the most entertaining things the 80s ever produced. Now, these films weren't just entertainment, they were fuel. If you grew up in the UK in the 80s, BMX wasn't just something you watched, it was something you lived. It started with Kickstart, a BBC motorbike trials program where riders navigated impossible obstacle courses. Every kid watched it, and every kid immediately went outside and tried to recreate it on whatever bike they had.
Lose all confidence, he just threw that off. He caught his thigh on the handlebars. You can see him holding himself there. Oh dear.
And then the BMX craze properly landed, and suddenly every town had a track. Every estate had kids building ramps out of bricks and plywood. Now, I was right there with them, except I had a grifter. And if you know, you know. The rally grifter was built like a tank, heavier than a BMX, wider tyres, and the kind of bike that made you work for every jump. While your mates were catching air on mongoose and red lines, you were on a grifter, pedaling twice as hard and getting half as high. But we didn't care. We'd head down to the local BMX track and spend hours there. Heady times, genuinely heady times. Now, you might think that's where the story ends. 80s nostalgia, films we loved, bikes we rode, past tense. But BMX never really went away. And I know that because two people I know very well are living proof. Ginger Snap Markham, wife of a very close friend of mine, is currently ranked #1 in the United States in her age group amongst amateur female BMX racers. #1. She's a 2024 UCI World Champion qualifier and the 2024 US Southeast Gold Cup champion. She's not doing this as a hobby, she's doing this at the highest amateur level in the world. And then there's their son, Jack the Penguin Markham, a two-time UCI World Championship qualifier who has represented the United States in international competition, ranked 22nd nationally in his age group, current South Carolina state champion, and in 2025, nine-time national race winner. A mum and her son, both competing at the top of amateur BMX. And if that doesn't tell you the spirit of what RAD and BMX Bandits captured, and is still alive and pedaling, probably nothing will. So, the question, BMX Bandits or RAD? Which one takes the crown? And here's where everything we talked about comes together because this isn't just about which film is better, it's about what each film is. BMX Bandits is Goonies on wheels. It's warm, it's charming, and it's the kind of film you can watch with your kids and say, this is what it was like. Nicole Kidman, before she was Nicole Kidman. A water park scene that lives rent-free in our memory of everyone who saw it. It's a beautiful time capsule and a gentler kind of 80s adventure. RAD is a ghetto blaster on handlebars. It's louder, faster, wilder, a film that takes BMX and treats it like the most important thing in the world. The soundtrack alone could power a small city. Helltrack is one of the great underdog finales in 80s cinema. And that dance scene, that stupid, brilliant, impossible dance scene, is the kind of moment that could only exist in this decade. In this film, with this level of complete commitment to being absolutely bonkers. So, BMX Bandits is the film you remember fondly. RAD is the film you remember physically. You feel the jumps, you feel the crashes, and you certainly feel that soundtrack in your chest. Remember, I had a grifter, not a BMX. I rode tracks I had no business being on. The Markhams now do it properly, and I wished I could keep up. And when I think about which of these two films captures that, the rush, the stupidity, the sheer joy of being a kid on a bike who thought they were invincible, it's RAD. RAD takes the crown. But if you disagree, and I know some of you will, time to tell me in the comments. BMX Bandits or RAD? Come on, let's settle this properly. Now, if you enjoyed this showdown, hit subscribe. We do this every week on Screen One, and if you want more 80s deep dives, then check out the playlist on the screen at the end. And remember, Essential Cinema, always.